This meeting is being held in compliance with the Brown Act. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. If a member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. For all members participating remotely, please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. Please state your name during deliberations and whether making a motion or offering a second. Any voting member or member of the public calling into this meeting by telephone can press *6 to mute and unmute. All telephone participants should identify themselves prior to speaking. SCAG encourages all members of the public to participate in its meetings. We are committed to holding meetings accessible to people with disabilities. For members of the public requiring ADA accommodation, please call 213-236-1895. SCAG offers free interpretation services for members of the public needing information in another language. Please call 213-236-1895. The meeting will now begin.
Committee is now called to order. If I could have the Honorable John Dutre lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Well, thank you very much. Let's do a Pledge of Allegiance, and let's honor all of our military personnel and obviously the military personnel that lost their lives in the Middle East. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right. Mr. Clerk, do we have a quorum?
We show a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. All right. So now we're going into the public comment period. Do we have any, have we received any prior public comments or anything like that?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. No, we have received no public comments either before or after yesterday's deadline.
All right. Then I will now open the public comment period for the meeting for items not on the agenda. You already said we haven't received any public quorums. Public statements. Do we have any members of the public here today who wish to speak on matters not listed on the agenda? All right, nobody online? Cool. All right. I will now close the public comment period for matters not listed on the agenda and move us into consent and action items. So, right, straight into action. So our first order of business is the election of chair and vice chair of the Transportation Committee. I'm going to turn that over to Ruben.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of the Transportation Committee. Before I start the process for the election of the chair and vice chair of the Transportation Committee, I'll ask whether there's any public comment either online or here in the room with respect to this action item. Okay, seeing none, I will just launch into it. In accordance with SCAG's bylaws, every policy committee will be electing leadership this morning. For the Transportation Committee, we've got two unopposed positions. The positions of chair and vice chair have one nomination each. For the position of chair, the Honorable Mike Judge has been nominated by himself. And for the position of vice chair, the Honorable Thomas Wong has been nominated by himself and by Chair Judge. Mr. Chair, with your permission, I will now proceed to open the floor to nominations. Our bylaws do allow for any nomination from the floor from a member of the committee. You may nominate either yourself or another member of the committee. And that person or persons will have up to 3 minutes to address the committee in support of their nomination. And so with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'll open the floor. I see Member Harnick has raised her name tag.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Is it appropriate, I just want to state that I think we have good leadership and let's just maintain it as is.
Thank you, Member Harnick. Mr. Marquez's hand went down. Great. I'm looking up at the screen or to the clerk to confirm whether anybody online has raised their hands to make a nomination. We have no hands. Okay. One last call for commentary. Seeing none, unless there's an objection, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I would like to ask for a motion to confirm both the chair and vice chair positions to only have one vote. I have a
Moves.
motion from Mr. Hagman, second from Mr. Marquez. If I could ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Zeal Ahir.
Yes.
Javier Amezcua. Adele Andrade Stadler. Phil Becerra. Ryan Bayless.
Yes.
Catherine Barger. Brian Bergson. Austin Bishop. Jeanette Burns. Denise Delgado. Jonathan Dimitru. John Dutre.
Yes.
Bubba Fish. Jason Gibbs.
Yes.
William Go.
Yes.
Kurt Hagman.
Hagman, aye.
Jan Harnick.
Yes.
Laura Hernandez.
Hernandez, yes.
Lauren Hughes Leslie. Mike Judge.
Yes.
Fred Jung.
Fred Jung, aye.
Trish Kelly.
Yes.
Lauren Kleiman. Linda Krupa.
Yes.
Andrew Laura. Carlos Leon. Bridget Lewis.
Bridget Lewis, yes.
Ken Mann.
Ken Man, yes.
Steve Manos. Ray Marquez.
Yes.
Larry McCallum.
Yes.
Marcia McLean. Tim McOsker. Dennis Michael. Linda Molina.
Molina, yes.
Harold Moore.
Carol Moore, aye.
Mullins.
Yes.
Juan Munoz Guevara. Ara Najarian.
Yes.
Frank Navarro.
Yes.
Nikki Perez. David Reddy.
David Reddy, yes.
Ed Reese. Gabriel Reyes.
Yes.
Crystal Ruiz. Ali Saleh. Steve Sanchez.
Aye.
Tim Sandoval. Zach Schwank. Emma Sharif.
Yeah.
Assam Sheikh. Marty Siminoff.
Yes.
Jeremy Smith.
Aye.
Ward Smith.
Yes.
Karen Spiegel. Cynthia Sternquist.
Yes.
Butch Twining. Steve Ty.
Yes.
Bill Uphoff.
Yes.
Michael Vargas.
Yes.
Scott Voights. Donald Wagner. Colleen Wallace.
Yes.
Alan Wapner. Alicia Weintraub.
Yes.
Thomas Wong.
Yes.
Sen Wu.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Received, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I apologize. Clerk, I believe there were several people who raised their hand, I think to record a vote. Mr. Fish, I'm not sure if we heard you vote, but I saw you raise your hand.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm a yes.
Yes. And Wes speak as well in the city of Corona. Thank you.
And then the conference room at Coachella, I believe, also indicated a raised hand. Maybe not. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion for the re-election of chair and vice chair is approved by 39 in favor and 0 against.
Congratulations, Mr. Judge, Mr. Wong.
Well, thank you very much.
I'll hand the meeting back over to you, sir.
Great. Thank you very much on that. And I am honored to serve for another year, and I appreciate your confidence. Although I don't know why, but I appreciate it. I'll try to make sure that we get all our questions in on time and move the meetings along. So we're going to move on to item number 2 now. Our Active Transportation Program Regional Guidelines, presented by Rachel Alms, Senior Regional Planner for SCAG.
All righty. Good morning, committee members. I'm here today to talk to you about the Active Transportation Program. We are currently in cycle 8 in the early stages. So today we'll be talking about our regional guidelines. Quick overview. So again, we're in ATP cycle 8. As with each cycle, this cycle will fund 4 fiscal years. So we'll be starting in fiscal year 28 through 31. And this cycle, really happy to share that we have a fund estimate of $619 million. This is a relief given the budget cuts that we did have in cycle 7. So fingers crossed that we will maintain this estimate. Per this state statute, this funding is distributed as follows, where 60% is managed by the state through the California Transportation Commission, 50% is a statewide competition, and 10% goes towards small urban and rural areas. And then the remaining 40% goes to MPOs like SCAG that have a population greater than 200,000. And so that 40%, that's further distributed by population. So SCAG typically gets about 50%. So for cycle 8, our regional share will be $129 million. So the ATP is an interesting program where for our SCAG region, applicants have 2 opportunities to get funding. So the first is through that statewide competition, so that 50%, which is $309 million. So that's the first opportunity. And then any applicants who are not selected through that statewide competition, their application gets forwarded to the SCAG region, and SCAG works with our county transportation commissions to then develop our regional ATP. And so that's where our regional guidelines come into play, and I'll be covering that today. So again, here to talk about our guidelines, which is developed by our ATP subcommittee, and that subcommittee is comprised of SCAG staff, so that's myself and our SCAG team, and then representatives from our 6 county transportation commissions. So really appreciate staff's collaboration on these efforts. Our regional guidelines are shaped by the ATP statewide guidelines. You can think of the state guidelines as like the umbrella, and then our regional guidelines fall under that. And then they are further refined by our regional priorities. Really, the key aspect of our regional guidelines is how our funding is distributed. As with previous cycles, we are aiming to hit those population-based funding targets. For this cycle, we are, again, shaped by state guidelines. So the first kind of focused funding is focused on plans. The state guidelines indicate that the regional ATP can award up to 2% of our regional funds towards plans. So what this means is plans, which are defined as active transportation plans, which could be bike plans, pedestrian plans, safe routes to school plans that benefit disadvantaged communities. And so that 2% comes out to a little over $2.5 million over 4 years. So on the slide and in your packets, we have those funding targets distributed by county. And the remaining or the majority of the funding is set aside for what we call implementation and capacity building. And those projects are infrastructure, which are the construction projects. non-infrastructure, which are education and engagement efforts, often focused on safe routes to school, and also combination projects, which are infrastructure projects with education and engagement components to help people learn about that infrastructure project. So that funding comes out to about 126 million over 4 years. And again, on the slide and in your packets today, you'll see those funding targets by county. So we often talk about how in the ATP, there's always, it's a oversubscribed program. It's really competitive, and that there's always more need than there's funding available. While that's certainly true, today I also wanted to highlight the ATP is funding a lot of fantastic projects. There's a lot of great activity happening in our region. Today I'll be highlighting two from 2 different counties, but I can assure you there's activity happening across all 6 counties of our region. So certainly happy to, follow up on any projects you may have questions about. So the first project I wanted to highlight is the city of El Centro. This is funded through cycle 5, so a couple cycles ago, but kind of goes to show our projects really go through a process to get constructed. So this was funded through our regional ATP, and it's called the El Centro Pedestrian Improvement Project. The total project cost is just shy of 2 million, and this project received a little under 1 million ATP award. So this is for several locations in the city with new signals, always stop controlled intersections, sidewalks, ADA compliant curb ramps, and enhanced crosswalks. And on this slide, you'll see it's a photo shared by the city. Project was still in progress of being implemented, but in January 2026, the city was sharing a new signal at the intersection of Imperial Avenue and Pepper Drive. The next project I wanted to share today is with the County of Orange. This is funded in cycle 6, so a little more recent. Also, and then through our statewide ATP. So this project competed at that statewide level. And this is a project supporting the completion of OC Loop, particularly segment P and Q. So these images are pulled from the CTC, or the State California Transportation Commission. They did a project profile on this award. And so this project, it's a little over 60 million and received nearly 46 million in ATP funding. And it's about a 1.5 mile ADA compatible asphalt trail. And it's bridging a last gap in a nearly 16-mile San Gabriel River Coyote Creek multi-purpose trail. So just a small snippet on screen, but you'll see segment P and Q in the green and sort of pink magenta color. So a lot of activity coming up for the ATP. Today, we're requesting your recommendation for approval for regional council to approve our guidelines, which we'll then send over to the state for their review and approval. Following today's meeting, the next big milestone is opening that call for projects on March 20th. And again, jurisdictions in our SCAG region will need to submit an application to that statewide competition to first compete for funding there. And if they're not awarded, then they can be eligible for potentially getting funded in our regional ATP. So a couple months of time for jurisdictions to pull those applications together. In June, the CTC will be approving the regional guidelines that you are considering today. And then later this year in December, we'll hear the results of that statewide and small urban and rural competition. And then looking ahead to next year, that's where a lot more exciting updates are to come, where we'll be developing our regional ATP and bringing that forth for your consideration. So some of the key milestones here in March, we'll be back to share our regional ATP for your recommendation for approval, and then going to regional council in April. And then once we kind of go through that process in our region, we'll turn that over to state for their approval of the MPO component, which includes our regional ATP. And then that'll take us to fiscal year 28, where awarded projects will be able to kick off their projects, allocate funding, and get more projects in the ground. So thank you for your time today, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item?
I do.
We do.
Okay.
No.
I do. Carol Moore.
A member. Yeah. Okay. This, any members, we don't have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item. I'll now entertain comments and questions from members of the Transportation Committee. Okay. We'll go with Steve Ty.
You said that. I'm sorry, just tell your microphone, please.
Oh, thanks. You said that El Centro was new signals. What I wonder, is it a new signal or is it brand new to that area? Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So if there used to be
mhm.
3 signals, now there's 4 or 5. Was this brand
I
new?
didn't spell that. Okay.
I'm getting some help from David here.
Yeah, they're new pedestrian signals in the city of El Centro, brand new, yes.
So when we saw what you put up there,
Mhm.
it looked like a 4-way intersection.
I believe that one was a full traffic signal. Is
Correct.
that right, David?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there wasn't one there before.
No.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Got it.
Yeah, we got it.
Member Ahir?
Oh, your microphone.
Thank you. My question was about the ATP in action. You have
Mhm.
County of Orange and it says there's the OC loop segment, P and Q. And then for an example, you have the Artesia Boulevard as a concept mentioned. I'd like to know if you have information on that particular project. And then a follow-up question would be, what are some other examples of capacity building and what are we building capacity for?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I can certainly follow up with more information about the Artesia Boulevard concept. I believe the project may be currently in design. So I think the image that was shown on screen, that was from their application, maybe from like engagement, that was a potential design. But I can certainly follow up on the latest status of that project. And then in terms of capacity building, that term is really used to refer to education and engagement. So within the ATP, there's multiple types of projects you can apply for, and one of them is it's that non-infrastructure, and non-infrastructure covers education and engagement. So kind of capacity building, meaning if you were to do if a city got awarded for safe routes to school programming, they would do outreach and engagement to maybe it's citywide or maybe it's focused on a few schools to educate on here are the recommended walking routes. Here's what you should be aware of as someone who's walking or biking to school, or as a driver, how you should be aware of students and families walking or biking to school.
Okay. Can I ask one more question?
Sure, go ahead.
So for example, if one of our nonprofits wanted to open a center to do the same thing that you're mentioning, like educate and also design their own like streets or I mean safer street light components, can we fund that through SCAG?
So through the ATP, a community-based organization, they are unfortunately not an eligible applicant.
Okay.
And I can certainly follow up with the list of the eligible applicants that's in the state guidelines, but they can certainly partner and request funding. While the construction of an actual facility would not be covered by the ATP because the ATP is focused on walking and biking projects,
Right.
it could certainly help fund programming
Okay.
to develop that educational material.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dutry?
Yeah, just the application, it's directly from the agency to SCAG, well, first to the state, but the County Transportation Commission is not involved in terms of the application submittals like they are for REAP, for example.
So in terms of the initial process, we're using the application created by the state.
Right.
The county transportation commissions, they may have a role in terms of working with jurisdictions and prioritizing projects or reviewing applications. But in that statewide competition, the county, they don't have involvement. But
Okay.
in the regional ATP, each county transportation commission is eligible to develop a up to 20-point scoring methodology. And then that kind of it takes the state score. Let's say a project got a score of 85. And then let's say Ventura County decides to apply their 20-point scoring methodology. And that's really a way to kind of reorganize or rank projects based on that regional
Okay.
priority.
So there is advantage going through the CTCs and to the county transportation commissions. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Nobody else in house? Remember to put your flags down when you're done talking so I don't get confused. Cool. Now we're going to go online. Commissioner Moore? You're still muted. Oh, she put her hand down?
Commissioner Moore, we see that you lowered your hand. Does that indicate you no longer wish to speak?
Or you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, we're not
Pardon
hearing.
me. I thought I was unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. I took it down because I thought I was speaking and you could hear me. My statement has to do with moving forward with other technology. And I'm disappointed that at this time, we still don't have anything involving autonomous vehicles. I'd like to see a program, and I think one could be, it wouldn't be a county program, for example, if there were one of the lanes was dedicated during certain times and using apps to get into this program. An autonomous vehicle could travel from Orange County, Laguna Niguel, perhaps, all the way to downtown Los Angeles, or possibly just using the three major stops. Because one of the problems with the train is so many stops. The three major stops could be Orange County Airport, Long Beach Airport, and eventually LAX. But if you notice where the 605 comes into the 405, you also could have a stop there. In this program, I think you could share with any of the companies that are in the autonomous vehicle business, and that includes Uber and Waymo, and I don't know all the names, Tesla perhaps, I don't know. At any rate, I think that this is a possibility for moving people downtown, that they would not have numerous stops. And if you got to the 605, you think of the people who go into downtown like today, Skag, but you also have the people who go to Met. So you have a regular group of people going at a certain time. And I think that a program could be developed. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else online? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval. And that's Palm Desert or RCTC.
And at one of these things, if we could throw in all the consent too, it saved our clerk a lot of. So if you amend your first, I'll amend my second.
Thank you for that fine suggestion.
So, Mr. Chair, the suggestion has been made to hold off on this motion and vote until you present the consent calendar and see whether we can just take all one vote.
So, fine with me. Anybody have any objection to that? Online? Okay, let's do that. We're moving on to number 3, right? All right, so we're moving on to number 3, recommendation and approval to recommend applicants for the last mile freight program, rebate program. And this will be put on by Ryan Laws, the senior regional planner here for Skag. Good morning.
There we go. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. So as introduced, this item is being brought forward for TC recommendation that the Regional Council approve an award of $871,000 in rebate funding to 3 applicants to purchase Class 4 or 5 battery electric vehicles as part of the LMFP rebate program and Invest Clean Measure 2.2. So a bit of background on this program so that everybody gets a recap. This program is being developed in collaboration between Skag and the South Coast Air Quality Management District. It utilizes funds from US EPA. And the program itself fulfills Measure 2.2 of AQMD's Invest Clean program, again, focused on specifically funding Class 4 and 5 battery electric truck purchases for last mile freight operations. Now, there are a few different things that applicants need to do and also need to be in order to be eligible for the program. One of which is that they need to be operating in a goods movement capacity. Obviously, they also need to be purchasing Class 4 or 5 vehicles. There's also a diesel vehicle replacement feature as part of this. So most of the vehicles that are purchased need to be replacing diesel vehicles that are currently on the roads. It needs to be a minimum 51% threshold of vehicles that are being replaced as well. So those are some things to keep in mind. Also, each rebate that's given for a single Class 4, Class 5 vehicle is worth $67,000. Now, the program was officially launched in October 31st, 2025. And we accepted applications through the end of January 2026. Now, applicants had to provide a range of different materials, including information on the diesel vehicles they were going to be replacing, as well as information on the battery electric technology they were using for the replacement. It also included anticipated emissions reductions and information about where the companies were geographically located. Now, in order to evaluate all the applications, we essentially took all the applications in, screened them for eligibility, and then after they were deemed eligible, placed them in a tiering system, essentially ranking them against one another. This would allow us to be able to prioritize funding to certain projects in the event that we were oversubscribed. Now, what came in was 13 applications. Of those 13, 3 of them met our full eligibility criteria. And note that we did have to ask one of the applicants to reduce the number of battery electric vehicles they were requesting in order to meet that 51% replacement threshold. Essentially, of the three applications that were eligible, they were only indicating that they had 7 diesel vehicles to replace. So that meant that they could only have 13 total battery electric vehicles funded under the program requirements. So here's a list of the projects that we would like to move forward with funding for a Class 4 and Class 5 battery electric purchase. It's worth $871,000 in total for rebates, FYI. And as a next step, following approval by regional council with the hope that you all would recommend approval, we would issue award notices to the selected applicants. SCAG would initiate MOU negotiations with all of the selected groups, and rebate funds would be dispersed upon confirmation that the vehicles were purchased and that all vehicles that are supposed to be replaced are scrapped. Now, SCAG is in the process of working with AQMD to develop a reopening plan for the summer. We will be opening up this opportunity again as there is still funding available. And here's a summary of the recommended actions, and I'll take any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comments on this item? Seeing none. All right, so now we'll have comments and questions from members of the committee. Commissioner Dutre.
Yeah, $50 million is allocated to this program from $50 million is allocated to the program from AQMD.
That is correct. Well, technically, it's from US EPA.
Well, US EPA, yeah. So we had 3 applicants are being awarded. 17 applications came in. $871,000 going out. How long will this program last? I mean, what is it, for 2 years, 3 years?
So the program, I believe, has a footprint that goes all the way out to 2029.
Okay, 29.
However, there is a limited window to select applications. I believe that gets us into 2027. Yeah, so that's the lifespan.
Okay, and then were you anticipating 13 applications, or you thought more will be coming in?
So we were hopeful that we would get a lot of applications. We did do outreach, extensive outreach coming into the opening of the program to various equipment manufacturers as well as dealerships, and then contacts that we already have through the current last mile freight program phase 1 that's being implemented. And we did get feedback early on that there were going to be certain requirements within the program, the vehicle replacement component being one of them, that could bar certain folks from being able to participate. But knowing this, we felt it would be good to move forward and open up the program and still do our due diligence to see who we could get to participate. Also knowing that we had the summer as an opportunity to reopen and revamp if
So you have
necessary.
some lessons learned from the first round, and you can make some modifications as you go. Thank you.
Correct.
Commissioner here.
Thank you.
Mhm.
My question has to do with, did we do any, or do we have any like components for research on where they're getting their batteries or lithium, like these companies that we've chosen?
So I have not personally done research on that. I think that South Coast may actually be a better group to talk to about that. And obviously we're partnered with them. We can circle back and try to address that later, but I don't have an answer for it right now.
Okay. No, my question is pertaining to the cycle of, economy. If we're transitioning from diesel to clean, how clean is it really if the source isn't, balancing what we need it to balance? So.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the reality is that there's a wide range of different equipment manufacturers out there that have different processes. And I personally haven't done a deep dive into every single one. Each of the applicants that we're funding happens to be utilizing a different equipment manufacturer. So that's something that we can potentially look into.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Commissioner Harnick.
Is it absolutely imperative that the existing vehicles are diesel?
Excellent question. So definitely for this first round, it was imperative. While we're examining in the revamping of the program what types of changes we can make. Of course, those changes need to be vetted both with South Coast AQMD as well as US EPA. And so there are certain restrictions that just come with that arrangement. But we are examining whether we can still experience substantial vehicle emissions reductions through potentially replacing other vehicle categories. Some of the limitation, though, is that the figures that were used to come up with the expected emissions reductions did use diesel as a baseline.
If I can just add to the response on that one, I think you raised an important point, and that's part of the challenge of us getting the level of demand that we had hoped for, in that particularly for this class of vehicles, what we've found in our engagement with industry is a significant number of their fleets are already fairly clean. And so there's a limited market for this. And so we're having further conversations with both AQMD as well as DOE to clarify that and to hope that basically trying to work out a program that is much more flexible to allow for additional class of vehicles to qualify. So it's an ongoing conversation.
Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question, comment, I guess. Do you think the low participation is due to the lack of buy-in in the technology? There's the limitations on charging, maintenance, repairs, right? If their fleet are diesel, how do you repair an electric vehicle, right? Little things like that.
Right. And you ask a really good question.
I try to.
Yeah.
I'll let the voters know, La
yeah.
Quinta.
I mean, everybody asks good questions, but this is one where we could probably spend the next hour talking about. I think there's a lot of moving parts here. And there's the question about the use of the technology and its capacity. There's also questions about changes in the regulatory environment and how that's impacting things. I think at this stage, we still don't know 100% whether it's one or the other. We're really dealing with a chicken or egg situation, which I'm sure you all hear every single week or every single month. So, what we're going to do is just do our best to roll with the punches here and revamp the program in a way that we think can increase participation. We have a few strategies that we're talking with AQMD extensively about. And together, I think we can come out with something that makes this more accessible to a wider range of folks. And hopefully, even the individuals that originally applied to the program and either had ineligible or incomplete applications will be interested in reapplying as well.
Yeah, we talk about education on some other grants and programs we were just talking about earlier. I wonder if having some outreach as far as feedback from all associations, trades associations, and whatnot, to see what their reluctance is. I don't disagree with them on their reluctance in the technology, right? It's a new technology and it's just not there yet. So I can see why, but I think trying to find out exactly why they're not participating, because if no one's going to participate, should we just focus on other areas with our funding and our efforts, right, and staff? So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chamber? Commissioner Molina.
Yes, and is kind of piggybacking on Steve's comments. What about the fear of safety and storage of the batteries? Is that an issue that's also, because that's becoming more and more prevalent? The movement of the batteries and the storage of the batteries, the safety of managing fire and what have you. Is that also something that's being looked at?
Yeah, so for this program, because it's just focused on issuing rebates for Class 4 and Class 5 vehicle purchase, what happens with the battery in terms of its life cycle hasn't been as much of a conversation. However, I know that we do have folks at SCAG and folks at AQMD that look at that more extensively.
Well, I'm thinking of companies that are thinking of the purchasing of the vehicles, if that's an impediment.
Yeah, it's not something that's currently in our program requirements, but it's an excellent question.
Thank you. All right, we don't have anybody online. It looks like they want a question, so we'll move this on anybody want to make a motion on this? Move this up to the regional council?
So moved.
Second, to add to the previous one.
Right. Yes.
One roll call makes all.
We'll do it all at once. All right. Now we're moving on to our consent calendar. Thank you very much for your presentation. We have any members of the public who wish to speak on the consent calendar? Nobody. Okay. All right. Does anybody on the commission want to pull anything from the consent calendar? Okay. Commissioner here.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to, are we voting on Mr. Kettle's presentation last week for the request of the 3-year sustainable plan for Metro?
No.
No, okay, then no.
Okay. All right, so we have 3 items to vote on. Oh, we do? Oh, I'm sorry.
Gabriel Reyes.
Commissioner Reyes.
Would I be able to move the consent calendar?
Do I have a second?
We did.
Larry McCallum seconds. Perfect.
So the clerk has got 3 sets of movers with the associated seconds. The motion on the floor is to approve all the items on the consent calendar and items 2 and 3.
2 and 3 in the consent.
Correct.
Okay.
So the final movers are Reyes and McCallum, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chair.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Let me know when you're ready to go, Mr. Clerk. Okay.
Ciela here.
Yes.
Javiera Mezcua. Adele Andrade Stadler. Phil Becerra. Ryan Bayless,
Yes.
Catherine Barger, Brian Berkson, Austin Bishop, Jeanette Burns, Jonathan Dimitro, John Dutre, Bubba Fish,
Yes.
Jason Gibbs,
Aye.
William Go,
Yes.
Kurt Hagman, Jan Harnick,
Yes.
Laura Hernandez,
Hernandez, yes?
Lauren Hughes Leslie, Mike Judge,
Yes.
Fred Jung, Trish Kelly,
Yes.
Lauren Kleiman, Linda Krupa,
Yes.
Andrew Laura, Carlos Leon, Bridget Lewis,
Bridget Lewis, yes.
Aye.
Ken Mann,
Ken Man, yes.
Steve Manos, Ray Marquez,
Yes.
Larry McCallan,
Yes.
Marcia McLean,
Yes.
Tim McOsker, Dennis Michael, Linda Molina,
Yes.
Harold Moore,
Carol Moore, aye.
yes. David Reddy,
Yes.
Gil Rebolar, Ed Reese, Gabriel Reyes,
Yes.
Crystal Ruiz,
Yes.
thank you, received. Ali Soleil,
Yes.
Steve Sanchez,
Aye.
Tim Sandoval,
Yes.
Zach Schwank, Emma Sharif,
Yes.
Assam Sheikh, Marty Siminoff,
Yes.
Jeremy Smith,
Aye. Aye for Jeremy Smith.
Karen Spiegel,
Spiegel, aye.
Cynthia Sternquist,
Yes.
Butch Twining, Steve Ty,
Yes.
Bill Paul,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Scott Voits, Donald Wagner,
Aye.
Colleen Wallach,
Yes.
Alan Wapner, Alicia Weintraub,
Yes.
Ward Smith is a yes.
Also, Suzette Mullins as a yes. I did not hear my name.
Ed, Frank Navarro here. My vote is yes. I didn't hear my name either. Ed Reese is a yes.
Michael Vargas is a yes.
Reese. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes. Motion for items 2, 3, and the consent calendar are approved by a vote of 43 in favor and 0 against.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. And we're going to move into information items right now. And as you all know, I love lively discussions and questions. But we have until 11:15 to get this done. We do have permission from staff to move the last item on the information calendar to the next meeting if we have to, but hopefully we won't. But do not hesitate with the conversation and the questions. So let's move on to curb space management update. This will be presented by Ryan again. Thank you.
Thanks for having me back. So yeah, I'm going to try to move through my area fairly quickly because we do have a couple of speakers that are backing me up here. But again, thank you all for having me. Please save questions to the end so that our speakers can present on what they have to present first. But I'm here to talk about some of the curb management work that SCAG has worked on over the last several years. It's an item that some of you may be more intimately familiar with, and then others, this may be new information. So we just want to get it out there so that everyone is aware. So first off, let's talk about what curb management is. And I'll start off by saying that it's not anything, it doesn't have to be anything super complex. This is something that we're all familiar with, whether it's the use of curb paint, signage, meters at the curb. We all engage with curb management, whether you are somebody that drives a vehicle, takes public transportation, or even just as a pedestrian on the curbside. So what we want to do is of course, introduce that, but also talk about these 4 studies: the last mile freight delivery study, the curbs data collection inventory study, curb space management study, as well as our zero emissions delivery and smart loading zone study. And Lacey and Automotives will help walk us through that last one. So as I said, curb management, not something that's super nebulous, but it's changing. Because there are so many different ways in which curb space is being utilized. Whether you think about micromobility with e-scooters or bike share, or you consider some of the new technologies that are coming into the space when people talk about smart transportation or connected technologies. But what I want everyone to take away here is that with increased demand, curb management can be a tool for cities primarily to try to reallocate and also regulate how their curb is used to help reinforce the goals and aspirations that they have on what they want to see on their streets. And so one of the ways in which we initially started looking at this was through our last mile freight delivery study, which was started in 2018 and concluded in 2020. It specifically worked with the city of LA looking at how last mile delivery was being essentially acted out on LA's streets. And one really exciting thing about that study is that the data that was gathered from it was actually used by LA DOT to start up their own zero emissions delivery zone pilot, which I'm sure our friends Kelly and Lauren will get into toward the end of this presentation. Next, it transitioned into the curb space management study, which expanded on what the last mile freight delivery study did in a couple ways. One was moving beyond just the city of Los Angeles. You can see here that we partnered with the cities of Anaheim, Riverside, Santa Ana, and Santa Monica, gathering data and assisting them in starting up their own pilot projects. And we also did have an advisory role for the cities of LA and Long Beach. But another way in which it expanded was looking beyond just last mile freight, thinking about in each of these cities, what are the different use cases in which the curb basically exists? Is it different in a suburban environment, rural environment, typical urban downtown environment? And what are the different solutions that we can sort of find for these different cases? And then expanding on that, we have our curb space data collection and inventory study, which concluded in 2024. This was executed through our Sustainable Communities program, and it was done in partnership with 3 cities, which were Los Angeles, Long Beach, as well as the city of Stanton. In this case, SCAG and their consultants worked directly with city staff on coming up with tailored interventions and curb management strategies for what they identified as the main goals and ambitions they had for the curb. So as you can kind of see, we're drilling deeper and deeper down into interventions that are really tailored for specific places. And it brings us to our most recent study. the zero emissions delivery and smart loading zone study that was done in collaboration with the LA Clean Tech Incubator and Automotus. Now, what's unique about this study is that it had two main areas geographically that it was looking at. One is, well, actually two, technically, on the West Coast with Santa Monica and LA, where zero emissions delivery zones were being deployed. And then Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which was focused specifically on smart loading zones. In both cases, they utilize camera equipment to see what's going on in real time on the curb, and then see how the various interventions the city brings to the picture actually unfold in real time. Now, before I transition to my colleagues, I do want to point out a couple things for everyone here, just to keep on your radar. One, we've got a Toolbox Tuesday session to talk a bit more about specifically the curb space management study and the curb data collection and inventory study. It's on April 7th. So I know it doesn't say on the slide, but you can write that down, April 7th, put it on your calendar. So if you don't get an opportunity to ask questions and you're curious about those studies, I strongly recommend that you attend that session. Also, of course, we're working on LA 28, the Olympic Games, and specifically our regional transportation demand management strategy. Now, while the TDM strategy and plan is not exclusively focused on curb management is a tool that we can use to help make sure that the games are as operationally functional and safe as possible. So we will be using the learnings from all of these studies to help inform that work as well. And next, I'm going to move it over to Lauren Harper. Lauren Harper is one of the leads really in this zero emissions smart loading zone study. She is the Sustainable Cities Director at Lacey, and will run you through some of the findings from that study.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. As Ryan mentioned, I'm the Director of Sustainable Cities at the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. I also had the pleasure of being the PI on this grant. It was called Testing and Evaluating Curb Management Integrated Strategies and a Catalyze Market Adoption of Electric Vehicles. So as I mentioned, I'm going to go over a couple things here on this agenda, but I like to start with, has this ever happened to you? We talk about curb management, but when you see it live, it's very different things. And so just double parking, cruising to find a spot, and idling in illegal parking create curb congestion and increases greenhouse gas emissions, and it also creates unsafe behavior at the curb. So this can result in curb access being limited to individuals, and we've seen a growing demand because of ride hailing as well as e-commerce. And so city planners and enforcement officers, this project has helped to provide better information and as well as tools to support information and decision making. So as Ryan had mentioned, the project took place in 3 cities, so Santa Monica, Los Angeles, as well as the city of Pittsburgh. On this map here, you can see where there are different cameras and different types of controls, as well as smart and zero emission loading zones. So really our goal was to try to understand how can we spur EV adoption, specifically with smart loading zones, zero emission loading zones, to really improve curb management, improve productivity at the curb. So people sometimes will use a loading zone as their personal parking spot all day. Sometimes they will idle there for a long time, and this creates problems in disadvantaged communities as well as other communities that have pollution. We have over 20 partners in this project, as you can see all of them listed here, including SCAG and Automotus and some other folks at different national labs. I won't stay here on the slide too long, but over the 3.5 years, we deployed 218 cameras across 3 cities. We had 8 papers that were produced, over 11 publications. And then one of the things I want to draw people's attention to is specifically in Pittsburgh, we were able to deploy more cameras because they were able to move policy forward very quickly, as well as automated policy. So we saw that by adding a smart loading zone, you can increase the speed of traffic speed by 4.5%, which is helpful to know that when you have turnover at the curb and you do not have things inhibiting traffic flow or creating congestion, you can move this forward. Additionally, we also saw that enforcement can be used in different ways. I'll talk about that in a second. So in Pittsburgh, we actually saw between the first month of enforcement and then through the end of the project, a change from 70% in the first month to 95% compliance of folks using the zones in the proper way. This helped get people out of bike lanes, this helped get people out of bus lanes, and also helped the curb turnover well. We also saw the city of Pittsburgh move this from a pilot to a permanent program as a part of their transportation department. And they had about, I think, $700,000 in revenue at the end of the grant, but Kelly might be able to give you an update. Specifically in the city of LA, we had 12 zones through most of the project. And in the last 6 months, we were able to add 30 more cameras and zones to the city of LA. Really, the fires at the tail end and some policy challenges made it a little bit harder to get the actual cameras implemented, but we're having those. I think those are going to be funded, and even though the grant is over, they're funded through this summer. So there'll be a lot of data to help the city of LA make more decisions about how they might want to use this technology. Moreover, and then we also saw the city of Santa Monica use this particularly for bus lanes and bike lanes, recognizing that focusing on EVs may not be equitable for people who are able to afford electric vehicles versus in Pittsburgh, this was for all cars. So it was really looking at every single vehicle type and working to do that enforcement across the board. So there were a lot of lessons there. I was really excited that towards I think the last year, we were able to host a listening session with SCAG as well as USC, bringing together delivery drivers as well as TNC and ride-hail drivers, trying to understand like what are their challenges, what's the feasibility, and if they were run into these smart or zero emission loading zones, how would they feel about it? They talked a lot about how they want enforcement to be across the board very evenly placed. So they sometimes embrace this technology. And then they also mentioned different things for the future. So looking at real-time wayfinding systems that help people identify before they even get there if there's a place for them to park and deliver rather than double parking in the middle turn lane or things like that. And then also helping to have clear communication channels, especially when it comes to e-commerce ride-hail and TNC drop-offs. It's helpful to have some sort of playbook for different venues, for different types of events, whether that is a game or a concert. Some of them mentioned that changes every time, and so does the type of enforcement that happens thereafter. I won't stay long on this so I can stay close to time and Kelly can also present, but there's a lot of desire for consistency and enforcement. We also found that putting the zones in different places didn't necessarily work if you need to cluster them so people are not just parking in the red zone out of the camera view so that you can get more compliance there. This also helps for emergency stop vehicles and things like that, providing that space at the curb. We also saw that being able to be sometimes indiscriminate with fuel type, we were able to see that enforcement can happen and you can have compliant behavior, but there's a lot of communication that does need to happen. And then cities just need to also identify their clear goals. There's a lot of holistic things that we can do related to curb management, but one of the things we found towards the end of the project, the city of Santa Monica as well as LA kind of like to look at an a la carte solution. So picking what types of solutions they've seen work really well in Pittsburgh, which was really interesting. And then Lacey continues to really leverage the curb management insights for some of its work for its Road to 2028 summit and initiative. So we continue to look at how we might think about transportation for the games. So we are going to continue to convene people. We're actually planning a summit later this year. But if anyone is interested in some of the deliverables or insights from that listening session with SCAG, happy to share that with you all. And I'm going to pass it along thank you all, and I'm going to pass it along to Ryan.
Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate it. All right, you just got me very quickly here. So next I'm going to introduce Kelly Ferguson. Kelly is the Vice President of Client Success and Operations at Automotus, who was the technology vendor for this project.
Thanks, Ryan. All right. It's great to be here today and excited to share some of the learnings that we had as a technology vendor, Automotus, in this DOE project, but then also to share what we've seen in other cities as well across the US that are being able to leverage automated curb management. So just a little background about Automotus, we're a curb management company that utilizes computer vision to help cities better manage their curb, have insights into what's happening through analytics, automate things like payment for loading zones, and automate enforcement for things like bike lanes, bus stops, things like that. And our mission is to create cities and help cities be more safe, sustainable, and efficient. So I bucketed a few of our insights from this project that we've also seen be very consistent across the US and other cities, and some of which were highlighted earlier as well. One of the ones I'll start with is infrastructure. We attach cameras to street lights or traffic signals, and that enables us to have a good, clear vision of the curb and the activity happening there. That can be in this project in particular, we were fortunate that most of the infrastructure was owned by the city and made it a little more straightforward. But with a lot of political support, we're able to attach in cases where those poles may be owned by utilities. On the policy front, as mentioned before, there is difference in policy, what we're able to do here in California versus what we're able to do in Pennsylvania. And so that is super critical in order to unlock behavior change. What we saw in LA was we were able to say what was going on, but not necessarily able to do anything about it. And I'll go in a little more detail on the next slide about what kind of results we see when we are able to unlock that. At a local level here in the city of LA, we have a local ordinance that's moving through that is directing the LA Department of Transportation to prepare for an automated smart loading zone program. And just recently, we had a Senate bill at the state move forward, 1292, that will unlock some other ability to automate payment and automate enforcement and some of the things that I've previously talked about. So anybody who's interested in supporting that, please let me know. I'll be here after the meeting's over. And then on top of policy, we're funding. I know it can be really difficult for a lot of cities to, with budget shortfalls, things like that, less grant funding can be really difficult, but we find with supportive policies, these cities are able to create self-funding programs and net new revenue in many cases. So just a quick look at what we're seeing across the country. Pittsburgh, we've highlighted it already. They had major reductions in double parks, some increase in net new annual revenue. They've been able to automate lots of enforcement as well as the smart loading zones. The city of Philadelphia introduced a program last year for smart loading zones in their center city, which is their dense part of their downtown area, and saw a significant reduction in double parking. And they're because of the policies they put in place, they're seeing significant revenue on that with $72,000 per camera. They have 70 cameras currently in deployment. So a big increase in revenue for them on that front. One other thing to note as well is when these loading zones do get implemented, we see an increase in the number of commercial vehicles using those zones. So passenger vehicles are still using them, but it's also freeing up those spaces so that your freight and delivery vans can actually use those spaces more frequently. We're also seeing some pickup in New Jersey. Fort Lee, this is a good example of a city that's not necessarily doing automated enforcement, but have been utilizing invoices instead and seeing good compliance and payment across the zones, as well as that increase in commercial use of those loading zones. And then Hoboken, just across from New York, is one of the densest cities in the US. We have been doing just automated enforcement there for a 3-month program that has seen significant reductions just in those 3 months of blocked bike lanes, blocked bus stops, and then also that increase of freight vehicles in those loading zones. So across the board, we're seeing that improvements with policy can really help unlock those behavior changes. So again, if you guys are really interested, the Senate bill is 1292. It will really enable the state of California and cities here as well to be able to leverage what other cities across the US are doing. Thank you.
We'll take questions if there are any.
Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Thank you. All right. Okay, let's see. Commissioner McLean.
Yes, hi, thank you. I'd be curious to know what is the ratio between delivery trucks who are zero emission as to those who don't have the vehicles yet? And looking at your signs, where do the people who don't have zero emission vehicles because they can't afford them what are they supposed to do? And in my opinion, this is just one more way to make people pay to make a living.
Do you want to talk about
Yeah.
the ratio for data, and I can talk about
Okay,
some of the
sure.
other tools?
So as it pertains to what we're seeing at the actual curb, we see across the board, we see very little electric vehicle adoption of electric vehicles in the zone. A little bit more than a control area, for example, but it's still a very, very small percentage, like less than 5% of the vehicles that we see utilizing the zones, the zero emissions delivery zones are electric, and a lot of that's probably due to that uptake. In LA, in particular, and Santa Monica, for example, we're not doing any enforcement of those zones. So right now, those vehicles are okay to use those zones.
And then also in the city of LA, we are mostly collecting a lot of data right now. So there are controls, as Kelly mentioned, where you're really just trying to understand how people are utilizing and really what that behavioral output is. There's also a ton of regular loading zones that people can still use. As I mentioned, there's about 30 in the city of Los Angeles and then 49 in city of LA and 168 in Pittsburgh. So the differences there, we also created a toolkit during the lifetime of the project. I can also share an ArcGIS story map that has all of the deliverables from the project. And one of those is actually a toolkit for anybody who owns a freight vehicle trying to figure out, especially small businesses trying to figure out what the transition is. And so because of a lot of the policies in California and a lot of the goals we have related to transportation electrification, we've really just been trying to move that forward. And the thought is that eventually we won't need to have zero emission loading zones because most cars will be electrified. So that is also some of the thought there, but we do have a resource for drivers that are looking to figure out how that financing or what grants and incentives are around.
So people who don't have zero emissions have to pay to park in a zero emission zone? Help me to understand this, please.
So in LA and Santa Monica, they were designated as zero emissions only zones, but there was no payment ability to do payment or ability to do enforcement due to policy. So there was no impact on any drivers that were using those zones. In Pittsburgh, they were not designated as zero emissions. They were just smart loading zones. And the ability there was to test, do we still see that, congestion improvements? Do we still see emission improvements due to less idling? And we did see that in Pittsburgh, despite not having specific criteria for zero emissions vehicles. Does that answer your question?
Is SB 1292 going to restrict?
No, it enables smart loading zones. And if a city wants to do zero emission vehicles, they have the ability to do so, a zero emission zone to do so. But it's really geared to be able to enable smart loading zones, so payment of loading zones, and then also enforcement of things such as bike lanes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lorimer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the presenters. Ms. Ferguson, your presentation, the slides were talking about increased revenue in the different jurisdictions. What does that mean?
Sure. So increased revenue, that's, revenue from either the paid loading zones themselves or tickets that were issued as part of the program. And that's revenue to the city or the parking authority that's implementing the program, depending on how that structure works in that area.
Yes.
So
one thing really quickly that I'd like to add, there is a 15-minute grace period for all of the loading zones, or it depends on which city and what their comfortability is. But in Pittsburgh, there's a 15-minute grace period. So you can utilize the zone. And then after that, there is an increment pricing scheme to pay for that, the continued utilization of that space. So.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry about that. Commissioner Spiegel.
They addressed my question. They addressed my question.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanchez.
Kind of stole my thunder on that one, because revenue, sometimes when government says revenue, it's fines. And that's not the same as revenue. That's punishment for, hey, I'm gonna drop off my kid real quick instead of waiting. It's gonna take me 15 minutes to go around the block and waste more emissions than to just wait 5 minutes for my kid to go in and out and grab something. I'm always skeptical about revenue increases, incremental especially. And then zero emissions delivery zones. I'm a capitalism guy, right? So the free market usually speaks for itself on things, and no driver, no company is saying, I'm gonna go buy a zero emission vehicle because I get to park at Joe's grocery store in LA for free for 5 minutes longer, right? Like, people don't think like that, right? And so we're just basically creating a hurdle for everyone else who has to deliver goods to that block, wherever this loading zone is, because they don't have a zero emission vehicle, right? So I feel like we're just adding barriers. And then to the Pittsburgh one with the camera, the invoicing, are we able to legally to do that? I know there was a issue with speeding ticket violations. Is that the same type of, wouldn't that same type of law kick in where we're issuing tickets for parking where you're supposed to park via camera? Is that allowed?
So yeah, in the case of Fort Lee, they utilized invoicing as something that they were more comfortable moving forward with, as opposed to issuing a citation for being like unregistered or being over the extended period. So that.
Are you using the word invoicing instead of the word ticket?
Yeah, so invoicing in that case is basically like a bill for using the space, like
a ticket.
Well, there's a little bit difference in terms of how it's treated in, like, a court system or something like that. But in the Senate bill that I was discussing, like, enables that unlock for being able to issue a citation for that. So that's part of the bill itself.
It just seems like it's California once again. They screw up their budget. They screw up the transportation programs. So let's screw the little guy in their delivery method to get their money to help pay for our products. That's what it all seems like.
So there was also self-registration in Pittsburgh. So there was by the time the grant ended, I think it was about 12,000 people had self-registered to use the zones, which meant that when they pull into the zone, that 15-minute clock starts to run. And then after that, there's time over that they could pay, but none of that actually exceeded what it would cost to park in a actual metered spot for an entire day. So there is some equity in that way. There's also a lot of delivery drivers that work directly with Automotus to get all of their vehicles registered so that they would not incur fines. In the listening session, we also heard that there were drivers in LA, whether that is for Amazon, UPS, USPS, that they were getting followed by citation people. And they were saying that they felt like they don't want to go to certain neighborhoods to deliver because they know they're going to incur a ticket. So there's opportunities to say, how do you make sure that there are dedicated spaces for these individuals so that the deliveries can happen swifter? So that's one piece. And I just also want to say that I think some of the goals we also put in parameters, thinking about equity as a theme throughout, was how do you not penalize people? So if I go run in to pick up my Sweet Green order, everyone knows where the Sweet Green is in downtown. If I get a ticket on my car, that is a $63 ticket, no matter if I was in the store for 10 minutes or 3 minutes, right? So one of the things that the smart loading zones do, they also only bill you for the amount of time that you violated the curb, and you have to get up, I think, into an hour before it is that full entire amount of the citation. But that's also depending on what codes and what policies the cities have enforced. So just wanting to also put that out there, because it's not necessarily a $300 ticket for everyone. It depends on how long were you doing that infraction, which is a different thing that an enforcement officer can't necessarily do. They show up and they're like, this is a violation, and so everyone but that also doesn't curb bad behavior, because if you get away with it, people continue to do it and it creates more congestion. So those are a couple thoughts.
And just to clarify one thing that Lauren said, is if somebody parks at the curb and they have what is a registration, like a curb pass account, which is an automotive, the account that you need to park there, you will not get a citation as long as you're under 60 minutes. You pay, depending on the city, possibly by the minute, or it could be a tiered structure. In Pittsburgh, for example, as Lauren said, they have a 15-minute grace period. Other cities have things like a 5-minute grace period, to understanding that sometimes people just need to do something really quick at the curb and get out. The whole point of these programs and the reason that cities are interested in them is it does increase turnover and reduces those folks that park there all day, so that the Amazon driver has to park in the middle of the road and create a dangerous situation. So that's that reduction in double parks that we're seeing, that increase in turnover. And then by pricing the curb, you're getting people out of that space instead of hanging there all day, because it's typically an unmanaged and like not very well enforced spot. So, on top of that, there are other safety improvements. Obviously, folks that, are just doing something briefly in a bike lane, they, nobody wants to stay there very long, but that really adds up. Like vehicles that do that all day long, you see hours and hours of blocked like bike lanes that can result in the death of somebody. So that's a lot of the reason why these cities are adopting this type of technology, is to really improve safety outcomes for their community.
I appreciate that info. Thank you for that. And while Pittsburgh, talking about Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is not California. I'm not very supportive of this method, at least for my city. And the great thing about our way of government is, if people's cities are, let them do it, right? But it's just not a very a curb account, charging people to park in a zero emission fee zone and charge them for that. It was free yesterday and now it's not free. So we're still taxing them, for not having a clean vehicle. And so, I don't know, my thoughts. Thank you. Good presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Wu?
Thank you, Chair. We mostly talking about the curb management for drop-off area. The elephant in the room of our curb usage is parking. In some of the small towns, curbside parking is free, but people park there all day long. So share some insights you have of how this technology can be adapted to be used to enforce parking, street parking. Maybe you need someone to drive around to use the same camera.
You're asking if it can be used just for like metered parking or timed parking?
Parking enforcement, for example, time parking.
Yeah, time parking. Yeah, I mean, our technology is used in certain cities to enforce timed parking, where they don't currently charge for parking at all, but they want to make sure that there is still turnover. So there are cities that can utilize the technology for that purpose.
Well, sure, we can have people to drive around or chalk the tires, but how cost effective is that?
So one of the reasons we're doing this in certain cities is because they are limited in their resources for parking enforcement. So they don't have the staff to be able to do that. In some areas, I don't know if that's the case for California, they're not allowed to chalk the tires. So that's another reason that they want an automated solution. So it just depends on, kind of the resources that the cities have. Some other things that we're seeing is that parking enforcement officers are having situations where they're not safe. And so cities are trying to kind of remove a person from those interactions when they're issuing tickets.
Have we got to the point that we can have an autonomous vehicle just move around to use the camera?
Oh, I don't know about that, but I mean, there are, readers on vehicles now that go around and do that as well, but we're a fixed camera situation. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I also want to chime in that we worked with Carnegie Mellon University and USC to do modeling in VISM, as well as NREL's mobility energy productivity type of tool. So if you wanted to find out if there was efficiency in doing that for specifically parked vehicles, they have a lot of data and they're able to model synthetic ways of understanding if you change this one thing about the curb, how does it impact VMT or vehicle miles traveled? So
Thank you.
yeah.
Commissioner Wallace?
Thank you, Chair. So I'm a champion for Riverside and San Bernardino County. Have you guys did any data to see about that side, the going east instead of, it's always LA County.
Yeah.
I feel should go outside of the box.
So that technically is a little bit out of scope. We really picked City of Pittsburgh and LA because they have some of the worst pollution in our nation. So we focused on those two specific cities. When it also came to building the VISM model, I know that Pacific Northwest National Lab as well as USC, they had to build that model from scratch. So they actually reached out to Ryan, who connected them with some folks, as well as LADOT to build the street by street model. And so because of that, we were only able to measure and look at what some of the traffic flows were there. In order to do that in some of these other cities and other places, you have to be able to have some of that scaled data to build that model internally. And so expanding to different areas would be out of scope. But if there is a VISM model or there's traffic models built within other cities, you could feasibly think about looking and testing what the challenges might be or what the benefits might be for that type of smart loading zone or zero emissions loading zone being deployed in that area. So.
Yeah, and I'll just say that also it was strategic choosing LA and Santa Monica because they already had zero emissions delivery zone pilots. Other cities don't currently, or smart loading zones pilots. So some of it's dependent on that too.
Commissioner Harnick?
Thank you very much. And thank you for the presentation. It was like rapid fire, a ton of information. I appreciate that. And I'm from the Coachella Valley. And I want to say thank you for all this information. I know curb management is a fairly new concept in the whole scheme. And it's important, and I get it, and I hear some of the data, and I know some is going to grow and get better, and some may be left behind because it's just not relevant and working. But I assure you that a lot of this, I represent a city that has a small business district, and curb management is critical. We don't have the space to block off lanes in our street when we need deliveries and pickups. And I know COVID has exacerbated the curb management issue with all the deliveries we're seeing. So I thank you for that. And I assure you, I will ask that the staff from the city I represent is watching that toolbox Tuesday on April 7th, because there'll be important things for our city. And again, I know there's things that are going to grow from this and things that'll be left behind. I appreciate what you've done so far. I know it'll be helpful. Thank you.
Commissioner Siminoff?
Yeah, real quick, and you're talking about curb management, but and vehicles being limited the time they can park there. How do you address a handicap placard?
So I'll say that that is not something that I think was in the scope of our project at any point in time. I don't know if Kelly has worked with any cities to address those as well. As someone who had a temporary disability when I tore my Achilles, I very much recognize that. And there's not a lot of them in the city of LA on the streets. So I will say that, but most of I know specifically in LA, all of the loading zones turn back into parking spots after 6 p.m. So there is also that, but I think handicap spots were out of the scope of this project. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would just say that we would follow whatever the rules are for handicap placards in that jurisdiction. So if it's extra time or whatever it is, then we follow that whatever the law says for that region. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that very in-depth presentation. I have nobody online and there's nobody left in the building, so we're going to move on to our next presentation. All right, so we're moving on to number 11, Connect SoCal 2050 Vision, Goals, and Policy Review. This will be put on by Camille Garibia. Hi, Camille.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Judge and
Good morning, members of the Transportation Committee. This presentation actually covers content that I was unable to present last month. So, and then in combining the presentations, one of the slides got out of place. So bear with me as I have to jump a little bit throughout the presentation. And so as the Metropolitan Planning Organization for Southern California region, one of SCAG's key responsibilities is to complete the Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Communities Strategy, or the RTP-SES, every 4 years. The RTP-SES articulates the long-range transportation, land use, and transportation and land use vision for our region. Our last plan was adopted in April 2024, and staff has begun work on the next plan, Connect SoCal 2050, with the goal of completion by spring 2028. And so, as already mentioned, some of our requirements are we must update every 4 years to maintain eligibility for federal funding. The costs of projects and programs must match the expected revenues. We have to engage stakeholders and the public, demonstrate transportation conformity, and have a horizon year of 20 years into the future, as well as achieve certain reductions in greenhouse gas emissions from light to medium vehicles. To meet those requirements, the plan includes a vision, goals, and guiding policies, performance measures, a financial plan, forecasts, and a list of transportation projects. This slide further articulates the RTP-SES requirements. With the RTP, the federal requirement, we have conformity, performance monitoring, Title VI analysis for that component, and then the SES and the greenhouse gas emission reductions being the key state requirement. One key challenge we have this cycle is that CARB, the California Air Resources Board, has initiated another target setting process, which is required by SB 375 every 8 years. And CARB must adopt the new targets by this fall, and this would directly impact the next Connect SoCal update. CARB was expected to release draft targets last fall, but so far have not brought those forward. The current targets have been challenging to meet, and as we get closer to the 2035 target year, SCAG and many other MPOs have asked that CARB maintain the targets as previously adopted and focus on identifying resources and support to regions to implement greenhouse gas reduction strategies. And so this is where I'll get back to slide 2 and get to my presentation for the focus that I want for this month is to review the policies as previously adopted in Connect SoCal 2024. So a key component of updating the RTP-SES every 4 years is revisiting the policy elements. And that ensures that we carry forward what continues to serve us and our regional goals, while also updating those policies to reflect emerging challenges and updated analysis. And so we will be bringing these policy update discussions later this year and through the summer, through next summer, prior to the draft plan release in fall 2027. And in preparation for those discussions, I will go over our starting point, the 2024 plan. During that process, we did a major restructuring and an update of the RTP-SES policy elements, guided by collaboration among the policy committees, special subject matter subcommittees as well, working groups, and stakeholder engagement throughout the plan development process. The new policy structure from that plan includes the following elements: the overarching vision and goals, which articulate where we want to be by the year 2050, the regional planning policies, which provide guidance for integrating land use and transportation planning to realize the vision and goals of Connect SoCal. And these are intended as guidance for county transportation commissions and local jurisdictions to demonstrate alignment with the RTP-SES, which they need to do often in seeking resources for state and federal programs. And finally, under each regional planning policy area are implementation strategies. And these articulate priorities for SCAG efforts in fulfilling or going beyond the regional planning policies. And this is where SCAG leads, partners, or supports other responsible parties. So getting back on track, based on engagement with stakeholders and the public, during the last cycle, we developed a vision for a healthy, prosperous, accessible, and connected region for a more resilient and equitable future. And this includes goals across 4 main pillars of mobility, communities, environment, and the economy. These are the policy areas under which the regional planning policies and the implementation strategies are organized. While the policy structure was updated and new policy areas were added last cycle, many of those, as mentioned, remain evergreen in our pursuit of our long-range regional goals. Another important thing about these policy areas is that they're deeply integrated, meaning that the choices we make in one area, such as land use in our communities, can impact whether or not we are resilient to climate change. Similarly, investments that we make in mobility can create more equitable access to economic opportunity. And that concludes my refresher of the vision goals and policy areas. We look forward to returning to discuss this more in the near future. The next stop being the Joint Policy Committee in April, where we will share a draft policy development framework, which outlines the approach to updating these policy elements. This will include a proposal for the creation of an RTP SES special subcommittee focused on high-level guidance on policy. Specific items, of course, will still be routed to the policy committees for discussion. And complementing our policy development process and new this cycle is the Connect SoCal Futures exercise. In traditional planning process, we do a lot of analysis to understand and plan for a shared vision. And the plan considers what will likely happen and envisions that future that we want for the region. But the Futures Initiative allows us to explore what could happen. And so it adds an uncertainty lens to discussions that will help us reflect on varying social, technological, economic, environmental, and political dynamics in our world. And the findings from this exercise will help us understand which policies and strategies are robust and resilient across any plausible future, and not just the probable ones. And so we are engaging more in this coming year on data collection and policy development. We have our local data exchange process launching next month, which is the primary opportunity for local jurisdictions to provide input into the regional growth forecasts and ensures Connect SoCal is informed by locally validated data and reflects local growth visions. So finally, just sharing the preliminary milestones for development of the RTP SES Connect SoCal 2050. We've done a lot of work already on foundations and frameworks, adopting the SCS framework and guidelines, as well as our public participation plan. And we have begun model improvements. And then as we move into the spring, engaging, again, as mentioned, engaging more with stakeholders through LDX and the project list solicitation process, which will begin by the summer. And then final note on schedule is that SCAG will be starting the 7th cycle of the Regional Housing Needs Assessment process this year. And so per recent legislation, yes, everyone's most exciting time, right? So, per recent legislation, the RENA process is beginning 1 year earlier with SCAG receiving the regional housing needs determination from the California Department of Housing and Community Development by the fall of this year. And so our housing policy staff are developing a RENA schedule with consideration for coordination with the Connect SoCal process, and we'll share that in the near future. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm glad to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Thank you. Okay, we'll now go to the in-person speakers first. So I have Commissioner Siegel.
Refresh my memory. What is a 15-minute community?
15-minute community is where someone can access different community resources like shops and
Transportation, all that. Okay.
transportation and
From 15 minutes.
yeah,
Okay.
either walking, biking, or taking transit. Just near accessibility to many different uses.
Okay. All right. That's what I thought it was, but I wanted to confirm. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Kelly.
Thank you. That was a good overview and very helpful for us to have that refresher. But I just have a question and suggestion. There are some new elements to the upcoming RTP SCS, and I'm hearing from the SCAG technical working group that they have a lot of questions about this Connect SoCal Futures scenarios planning exercise. And it looks like it would be helpful for them to be able to, for you to hear their questions in advance and be able to get their input in advance of our joint policy committee meeting. And that would allow us to be able to maybe get more complete information and hear the focus on the policy considerations. So just a suggestion, I've heard from the technical working group, at least one or more members, that they have questions that they would appreciate having some connection with.
Yes, thank you. We are glad to provide that overview about the futures process at the TWG and plan to go at the end of this month or later this month, as well as provide a preview of what we will be presenting at the JPC.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank
Good
you.
online, right? All right, so no hands up online. All right, thank you very much. We're going to have to forego number 12 because we have 4 minutes left in our meeting time. So number 12 will be carried on to our next meeting next month. Right. So I'm moving on now to the chair's report. 2026 SCAG student showcase remains open for submissions. So if you know anybody or you want to let somebody know, it's a SCAG Student Showcase challenge students to create posters, story maps that illustrate the possibilities of open data to tell compelling stories, create insights, and showcase plans and projects. 2026 SCAG Student Showcase finalists will receive complimentary event registration, hotel accommodations, and admission to SCAG's 2026 Regional Conference and General Assembly in Palm Desert on May 7th and 8th. At the conference, participants will present their work to elected officials and industry leaders from across Southern California. Submissions are due March 12th, so you can visit the 2026 SCAG Student Showcase website to learn more and register. Do we have a MetroLink report? Marty?
So we get out of here on time. I'll kind of shorten it up. MetroLink is getting prepared for the FIFA World Cup in 2026. MetroLink has developed a service plan for the World Cup that will consist of the following. On match days, the plan will rely on existing MetroLink service inbound to Union Station. And implement a late evening return trains, which would operate Orange County, Ventura, Antelope Valley, the 91 Paris Valley lines, and the San Bernardino lines for the 8 match days, plus 3 additional days tied to the Fan Fest at the Coliseum. And then riders with a valid MetroLink ticket or pass would receive a free transfer to SoFi Shuttle to both Union Station and Arctic and Anaheim. And Metrolink will coordinate this, and staff will also monitor the timing and location of additional fans to access service impacts. And are we out of here on time?
You're doing well. Thank you. All right, staff report.
Very quickly, Chair, thank you. I just want to mention real briefly that registration remains open for the SCAG General Assembly, May 7th and 8th. Please take the opportunity to register and join us out in Palm Desert. And then the last thing I'll mention is that we still have our SCAG Scholarship program open until March 20th. If anybody has any a need for more information regarding that program, I'm happy to follow up. Concludes the report.
Thank you. Do we have any announcements from members?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if Councilmember Juan Munoz Guevara is on the line. He texted me to say he wanted to make sure he could vote on the earlier on when he couldn't come off mute, but I don't know if he's on. I can't tell.
Okay.
I'm on.
Okay.
Chair, how do you want to handle the votes? I'm a yes on all action items.
Calendar? Good. We took it.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, then we're going to be adjourned until next month. I think it's we're the same first Tuesday, right? Or first Thursday?
It's the second.
Second Thursday. Next month, we're moving, our meeting will be held on the second Thursday of the month instead of the.
Joint policy.
That's right. It's a joint policy committee meeting. So hopefully we see you all here.